Welcome to the Wolverine Digest podcast, the best spot for objective and authentic coverage of Michigan athletics. If you want open dialogue, honest opinions, and in-depth coverage of the maize and blue, this is the podcast for you. And now, here's your host, Brandon Brown, joined as always by Chris Breiler.
Joined as always by Chris Breiler, except for today. Chris, I think we've done every single episode we've done together, but today he had some obligations, obviously. This is not our normal time. We usually try to do it in the evening, but still super excited to get this thing going. We were off pretty much all last week, man. I had some family stuff going on. I was out of town, and Chris was out of power and internet for I think almost a week. So happy to be back at it today and super excited to be joined by special guest Stu Douglass, former Michigan basketball player. I mean, I think I'll call you a legend. Are you? How do you feel about that, man? I mean, you are one of the guys credited with building the foundation that is Michigan basketball. So I'll give you that title, man. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'll take it. I got to be better at accepting stuff like that. And the further I get away from it, the more accepting I am. So I'll take it.
That's good, man. I wanted to start right there. I mean, you and guys like yourself, Zach Novak, and the start of the Beeline era, he got there, I think, a year before you did, right? So you were, yep. I mean, your whole career was the beginning of John Beeline's career at Michigan. You just mentioned it. The further you get away from it, you probably look back on it a little bit more as you're getting into your 30s, I believe, now, right?
Yeah, 31 now.
How cool is that? I mean, looking back on what that foundation means, where the program is now, and that you guys were literally the beginning of that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember walking on campus and we were in summer school and the football players asked me and Novak if we were walk-ons. Yeah. And then where it is now. So it is pretty cool. I try and stay humble with it. But, yeah, we put in a lot of work and it does take a lot of time. When you're 18, 19, you're like, yeah, what is this day-by-day thing? Like, why are we so worried about every little detail? But you see where it's come out and – yeah, it's fun to watch. I'm not taking too much credit, but nowadays, but it's been really cool to see Michigan solidify its spot in the top, and not just like, are they going to be good this year? And it's like, no, they will be good. So it's
how good, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So bring everybody up to speed a little bit now, man. Before we went live, you were talking about just kind of hanging up the sneakers right now, man. You've been playing overseas for a lot of years. What's the last decade been like for Stu Douglass, and what are you up to now?
Yeah, it was 9 years playing overseas. I just decided to retire this summer. Back in Indy right now, living with my family, living with my girlfriend, and just being around family. And it's so nice just to be home with family and friends. And yeah, it's been a crazy 9 years, but it was a good experience. And, you never know when, you'll decide that time is right to be done, but it just kind of hits you a little bit over the head and you don't even realize it. And yeah, that's what it did for me. The pandemic helped a little bit with that, just kind of being lonely and stuck over in Israel. But it's been an interesting ride. I've learned a lot. And yeah, I'm pleased with how everything went down. You never quite fully accomplish your goals, how you set them, because you set them so high. But yeah, it's been something that I'll forever be grateful for.
Well, before I started researching you a little bit and looking you up, I was going to ask how your game is these days. I'm guessing it's still pretty sharp. You can now jump into like a 30 and up men's league. Like how is the game these days? And I'm sure you're going to keep playing as long as you're able to, right?
Oh yeah, I got the buddies. We're in a league, a YMCA league downtown Indy. We're doing pretty well there. Game's feeling pretty sharp, hitting some threes here and there. So it's keeping it alive. I'm not playing every day, but I'm getting my basketball fix. And Indy is a very good spot for that, thankfully.
Absolutely. Well, let's back up a little bit again and talk about your Michigan career and John Beilein and kind of that foundation that you did help start. What was it that allowed John Beilein to do what he did with walk-ons like yourself and Zach Novak? I mean, guys playing out of position and this system that was kind of new back then, and obviously what he turned the program into. Like, what? I guess I'll ask it this way: when you were a young kid, a freshman, a sophomore, did you see how good Coach B was and how good Michigan basketball would be, and how did that all happen?
In the moment, I didn't really see how good we could be. It was literally, take it minute by minute. not even almost day by day. It was minute by minute breakdown every single minute. I mean, we watched hours and hours of video, just like, what the hell are we doing here, coach? Like, what is going on? But then you realize, it paid off dividends when, middle of the season, you got, you're knowing every single set that you're going up against, you know how to attack defenses. And so that little attention to detail that took very, very long for him to establish, paid off big time. And yeah, so it's not a surprise, but in the moment you're like, you're under the clamps of college basketball, especially back then. He had so much control, and it was for a good reason, because he knew what he was talking about. But it's not always easy in the moment, that is for sure. But I learned a lot from him, and yeah, it's just, I'll never view basketball the same. Like, from day one, he's got you in there looking at it different, and the coaching staff as well. You got BA and Laval and Coach Meyer in there. The staff had to be, I think, top 5 staff in college basketball. I just learned so much that, I felt, like we had an advantage there, like a complete game advantage over other teams, just going into games. The way that we prepared was ridiculous.
You heard that a lot about Coach B, his attention to detail, especially on offense. The sets that he ran, you mentioned it, like maybe beginning of the year, like, what are we doing? Midway, you're like, okay, I get it now. You've played basketball a lot of different places overseas. I wonder if you can just touch on that a little bit. How complex was what Coach B did, and how big of an advantage was that when you just felt so prepared, even if it maybe did take a little while to learn all that stuff?
Yeah, definitely. I played my first year in Spain, and then the rest was in Israel. In Spain, there's a lot of sets, pretty good coaching. Actually, funny enough, they all go to like the same coaching school, and they have like the same exact playbook. So you're just running the same plays. Okay. Every team is running the same plays basically, but a lot of good sets, a lot of good movement. Israel was much more free, a lot of one-on-one, a lot of ball screen. You know how the game's just evolved into just ball screens. Everyone's using ball screens. And Coach, evolved his game, as Trey got there and other point guards. But I was glad to be out of that structure, to be honest with you, from an individual standpoint, to be able to kind of do my own thing and get back to, how I was in high school and stuff, and play free and try and shoot and score more. But then you get into it a few years and you're like, okay, like, I want to win. So can I get a little more, structure here? So there's that middle ground there. So it made me appreciate what we did a lot more as my years went on, and the more I, valued winning and trying to win later in my career instead of just trying to score. So it was an interesting journey for me to try and find myself, and then also like incorporate a lot of the things that I learned at Michigan into practice. And, we would get into practice in Israel. It's just basically just playing 5-on-5, not a lot of drills, not a lot of attention to detail. And I'm like getting really frustrated with guys, trying to push guys into help side defense, yelling at guys. And it's just, it's a different atmosphere. You got 1-year contracts, you're going to be leaving the next year, and you're not really worried about culture and that whole thing. So it was a test, I'll put it that way, after experiencing, the structure and discipline that I did at Michigan. So I think there's a balance there, especially for professional guys. But it was not always fun, let's put it that way.
Well, Coach Beeline, I mean, one of the things that the broadcasters brought up every single time he was on TV was that he was only ever a head coach. So you mentioned that kind of that control and maybe like that's all he knew. Like, he was the guy. He was always the guy. He leaves Michigan a little unexpectedly, goes to the NBA, and it just like crash and burn. And I don't think anybody who watched Michigan basketball or knew John Beeline or played for him, like guys like you, envisioned like that was even possible. I know I was shocked that it didn't work out. I mean, Cleveland wasn't a good team and it wasn't a great situation, but it really surprised me. I wonder, it's been a little while now, but if you've looked at that, I know from afar, you weren't here, you weren't talking to Coach B every single day, but that had to be a little surprising that it didn't work out for a guy like him like that.
Yeah, a little surprising. At the same time, he is a college coach through and through. And, NBA guys, NBA coaches they're managers. They're managing people, and they're managing personalities. And you're putting talent where it needs to be put, and you got some sets and basic structures. But if you're not managing the personalities, then things aren't going to work out. You got your Zen master Phil has kind of the blueprint there. You got Pop doing some similar things, and nowadays that's what everyone's doing. Steve Kerr, like all these successful coaches, are managing people and making sure that talent is mentally prepared, to be their best. And to micromanage in the NBA is a death sentence. And, Beeline can do that and manage people. But I think, you come in and you got, all this lingo for guys that they've never heard before because, the NBA has their set lingo. You got drills that guys don't want to do. And not that it couldn't work, but, you got to, again, there's a middle ground for everything. And so to come in strong, especially with a young team, and, he's having to play guys that are draft picks that aren't ready yet. So it was just a bad combo. You think that he would be, great for developing a young NBA team, but there's a lot of different intricacies that go into it. Like, you got to get your draft picks ready and play them even when you want to bench them. And it's just a tough spot it was a tough spot for him to be in. And I mean, I don't know who would have been successful coaching there during that time. So in that regard too, it wasn't too surprising. Like, I know he could do it if he wanted to, but the right time and situation, everything's timing and situation, for a player and for a coach. So, if you put Steve Kerr in the Cavaliers, it might not work out. Like we had Nate McMillan for the Pacers. It was not working out. He goes to the Hawks and, they make the Eastern Conference Finals. So there's just all sorts of things that play into it. It's not just like, hey, is, A going to work here? Is this going to fit into this? Sometimes you're trying to fit a circle into a square peg or a square hole. And it's like, you got to figure it out and be a little more nuanced with your decision making. So it is not easy, to say the least. And
coaching in the NBA is kind of weird as it is. I mean, I'm a Pistons guy. Dwayne Casey, coach of the year, gets fired. You're like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like working out even has like different meanings in the NBA. It's kind of nuts to think about, but yeah, I think overall just kind of strange. I know Michigan fans were obviously bummed he left, a little surprised. He goes to Cleveland. It doesn't work out. He's kind of, he's doing some broadcasting stuff, and now he's back with the Pistons in a developmental role. And you use that word. Just real quick as we wrap up on Coach B, a developmental kind of front office, identify talent, get guys ready to play. Sounds like that's right up his alley.
Yeah, definitely. He loves that. He really cares about that. He's always cared. You see him in his camps in the summer, and he's taking kids and working on their form. Kids that will never even play JV basketball in high school, but he does care, and that is super important. And it's just about where you can place that level of care to maximize its value, and I think that'll be a good spot for him.
So didn't work out so well for Coach B the first time around the NBA with the Cavs. We'll see what he does with the Pistons, but some other Wolverines are shining in the NBA. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about Duncan Robinson, a shooter, an undrafted guy. Just signs a $90 million deal. I mean, I wonder, do you feel like he owes you like maybe $1 million? Just throw you $1 million. Come on, Duncan. Like something. I was done. What do you think when you see that, man? That's got to be so cool. I mean, I know you didn't play with these guys, but kind of the brotherhood coming after you at Michigan. Tim Hardaway Jr. with monsters contracts, guys going lottery picks like Stauskas, Trey Burke, and then like Duncan, just an incredible story, undrafted, and now he's got this 5-year massive deal with the Heat. Just got to be so cool to see for all those guys.
No, it is super cool. It reminds me of when I was overseas. So that's like the first few years after I graduated, and I tell people I went to Michigan, like, oh, you play the national championship game? I'm like, no, I left the year before. And it's kind of the same feeling. Like, it's like, oh, I'm close to that success. Yeah. But I'm real happy for him. It's fun to watch, and it's fun to watch guys come out of Michigan, because before me, it was, few and far between with guys like that in the NBA. So it's really fun to see that the program can get guys like that, develop them, and pinpoint that sort of talent. Duncan especially is super fun to watch, and I found myself just like legitimately rooting for him. Yeah. And a lot of times, being a competitor and just playing basketball, like I just kind of watch it just to watch it. But with him, it's been like every shot you think is going in, every shot doesn't go in. You're like, what the hell, Duncan? What are you doing?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And so it's been really cool to see.
Very cool to see. You're obviously a Beeline guy. You played for him. You have all the love in the world for him, and you again helped kind of get the program lifted off where it got to. And then, am I wrong if I say that Juwan Howard has come in and made it better? Which I didn't even know like if it was possible, because the way Beeline did things and how much success he had. but it kind of feels that way, which is just incredible and kind of crazy to say.
No, I think Beeline set it up perfectly to. I don't know if Beeline was ever going to be the type of guy to get the top 10 recruits necessarily because of dumb reputations with system and blah 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 blah, all that stuff. Even though I think that's unfounded and stupid, but Juwan is definitely the type of guy. He's an NBA coach. He's a player's coach. He understands what it takes, and that is extremely, extremely important for young guys, for the top talented guys who have NBA aspirations, 1 year, 2 years and out. It's extremely important. And it's nothing against Beeline, but a top 10 guy is going to come in and be like, well, he never had it before. He doesn't recruit like that, like a Kentucky or Duke. He doesn't have the experience with the top 10 guy to do a one and done situation. I don't know if Beeline was super interested in one and done necessarily. So it goes both ways a little bit, but Juwan, that is the name of the game a little bit nowadays. I think the NIL stuff will help with that, as Hunter talked about in our interview. It definitely played a part in him coming back for his second year. So it might change the landscape a little bit. But, he's come in and just picked up right where Beeline left off and then some. And it's been really fun to watch. And the thing that Juwan does is really plays that NBA style where it's like, all right, we're going to give you a little bit of a structure, but we're going to throw the ball up and if you guys are good enough, you'll prove it. And I think that's huge, especially in tournament time when talent takes over. But at the same time, being very structured and demanding on the defensive end. So he's got it all. He knows exactly what he's doing. There was a lot of question marks around him, but it's obviously those have been squashed very quickly.
How much have you been able to watch over the last couple of years, Joanna specifically, while you were playing overseas and kind of weird time schedule and time difference, I'm sure? Yeah,
the first year I didn't get to watch too much. This past season I got to watch up until I left. I think I left in March. So just right at the tournament time, I tried to, get over to Israel and stay up late and watch some games. But I watched a lot early and during some of the Big Ten games. And yeah, it was just very different from my experience with Beeline and everything. But again, still very fun to watch. And, it was a journey for Michigan for sure. It was one of those games where you're kind of half paying attention when the game was close, or maybe Michigan was down 5. You're like, all right, well, we're just waiting for Michigan to make their 16-0 run. And that's exactly what happened basically every game. Yeah. So it was a different style, but it was cool to see the development of guys like Franz and Hunter and Isaiah and Mike and Sean D, all of them. So it was cool to actually be able to pay attention. I've never been able to pay attention over the last 9 years to really all the games like this. So now I'm more invested, especially with having a Michigan Hoops podcast. So sure, it'll be fun to stay invested and watch the development.
Absolutely. Well, okay, let's get into it now. You mentioned Hunter Dickinson. You mentioned the NIL stuff. I guess I'm just going to throw the most open-ended question out there first. NIL in general thoughts. I mean, just overall, just across the whole landscape of college sports.
Yeah, just about time. It's ridiculous what has happened. And I mean, I could go on and on about, college basketball and college fans in general, and the prototypical fan and their views on the free market, and yet you want to stifle college athletes from making money. And I know people are worried about. I just think they've taken too much ownership of their teams and their schools, and they don't really view athletes. This has been a common thing in the last 10 years. Is about athletes have been hammering us over the head about viewing them more than just as an athlete. And it still persists to this day. And this has been a step towards viewing athletes as more than just what they do on the court, even though they're going to make money about what they do on the court. But, they have livelihoods at stake. They got families that they're thinking about, they got to make money. Like, you're 18, you're an adult, you should be able to do these things in a free market. So it's going to be fun to see where this all goes. It's interesting so far to see the rules. I've been reading up on the rules and NIL rules, the policies that schools have, that states, the laws that states have passed, the NCAA policies. So it's going to be interesting to see how guys maneuver it, and talking to Hunter, and how Michigan hasn't really relinquished the licensing to the Block M yet, and how other schools have done that. So it's going to be a tough spot for some schools, but again, I think it's like an easy decision to let these athletes do what they want to do. I mean, you have compliance, and you got to work with compliance and be sure that guys are up to par on things, and keeping standards. And I know Michigan's very, very, how do I say this? They make standards very important.
That's a good way to put
very
it.
important to Michigan. So I think they're kind of tiptoeing around things, and I think Hunter voiced his displeasure with that. So we'll see how that changes, because I think a lot of other schools are just diving headfirst into it. And I think if you're a big program, you want to stay a big program, you gotta follow suit.
I think you put that about as gently as you could. I may not have said it as gently. I think Michigan is, kind of creating hurdles and enforcing rules that aren't really there. I mean, that's what it looks like from the outside. Hunter, you mentioned, was pretty displeased about it, and you said it felt like he wanted to say more, but he was still he is still playing for Michigan, so he's got to be a little careful, obviously. Yeah. But I got a couple of his quotes here from when he was on the podcast with you. He said, Michigan is not the most free of universities. They're being a little restrictive. They're being hard right now. They're being like the NCAA, which, man, you know how a lot of people view the NCAA. And he said they're holding us back a little bit. And, for a guy like Hunter, who was flirting with going to the NBA, and now he's back, and he must feel quite marketable, one of the most recognizable players in the country, at a place like Michigan, and he feels like he can't quite do what he wants to do. I don't know if you guys talked off camera, and I'm not trying to ask you to air his dirty laundry, but what is the sense that you get about what Michigan athletes are feeling right now? And I know you haven't talked to 1,000 of them, but that's a big one. Hunter Dickinson is a big one, and I'm sure there's a lot of football players kind of in the same boat too, just the more prominent names in the bigger sports. Like what sense do you get right now across the board from what Michigan athletes are allowed or not allowed to do?
Yeah, I think it'll affect most guys. It'll mostly affect guys like Hunter, like big names who want to do more and want, especially to represent the university, have that block M, have their school emblem on their stuff. I don't see it as like a recruiting advantage as much as like, if you don't do it, it's going to be a disadvantage. And if you're going to piss off your top guys, recruits will see that. Eventually high school kids and those top 25, 50 guys are going to look and be like, where can I, most important is going to be basketball, and where can I flourish and develop my career. But second is definitely going to be like, all right, where's good money making opportunities while I'm there, to provide for my family again. And if these things persist with Michigan, it'll be frustrating for Howard, because I know Coach Howard is all on board. Like, he just wants the guys to be their best. And, no coach wants us to be a distraction, but he wants guys like if they can take advantage of it. I mean, Howard played for the Fab Five when, they wore those blank shirts for warmups to protest all that stuff and the shoes. Like, he gets it. He knows what that's like. So he's fully supportive. And that's been fun to hear from Hunter, that, Howard is having those conversations with guys and making it a point to be supportive. And it's going to be bad for Howard if they're going to be handcuffed, and that if it does come down to something like that for a big recruit, and that'll be very frustrating. And hopefully it won't get to that point. And even if it's a small, like a 5% chance that is a deciding factor for like a top 5 guy, you don't even want to flirt with that stuff. So hopefully they can figure that out. Hopefully there'll be enough pressure put on the university to just be open, because even if it doesn't affect guys' money like that, just the perception that you're being closed off is enough to turn some people off. And perception is everything. And no matter in sports or in real life, it doesn't matter. So it's crucial for them.
Well, you said, based on what I've heard from some people, and I know people as well, I think Juwan's already a little frustrated, and I've heard that, and I'll ask you this, and you can confirm or deny. Again, I'm not trying to air anybody's dirty laundry, but to me, And I don't know Hunter Dickinson personally. I don't know what kind of a guy he is and how his mind works, but it kind of felt like Juwan maybe even gave him like, yeah, you can talk about this because I think it needs to be talked about. I again, confirm or deny if you know for sure or not, but to me, it seems like a guy like Hunter Dickinson in his position would have to have at least run something like that by a coach like Juwan Howard to just go out and say what he said on your platform. I mean, am I way out of line there, or is that accurate, you think?
I'm not sure. Hunter didn't confirm or deny that or say that to me. It would seem like that. I will say that Hunter is definitely in a position where he's told everyone he's leaving. This is 1 year.
Yeah.
He's got really nothing to lose. He's not
true.
He's not going to go around compliance and get himself in trouble with things. He's not going to do that and jeopardize the season. But he's definitely in a position to be confident to speak up for himself. And I think even if Howard, I don't know if Howard would say like, "Hey, voice your opinion, your frustrations," but he gives his players the confidence to be themselves.
Yeah.
And I think, he knows that if Hunter knows that if he wants to be himself and voice some frustrations, even in our interview, he was a little guarded with things. And, you're talking to media, you're not going to be fully honest about everything, but he felt confident enough to voice those frustrations. And I think Howard gives that confidence, but I don't know if he actually directed it. But yeah, I mean, I can imagine Howard being extremely, extremely frustrated with these things because coaches all the time, Beeline was all the time asking compliance, like, what can we do here? Like, what are the rules? I want to stay within the rules. And I know from people that I know that have been in compliance, Harbaugh did the same thing, and people are, Harbaugh pushed the boundaries. So it's always about getting, again, not always getting an advantage, but like, I want to be able to do the most so I'm not behind. And if that persists, again, like I said, it'll just be frustrating for the coaches and recruiting. And I'm sure, I want to talk to some of those coaches and hear what those conversations are like. I haven't yet, but it's going to be interesting to hear about what those conversations are like now with recruits in regards to NIL.
Yeah.
Time will tell.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, I'm sure you've been plugged in and seeing things here and there about what other schools are doing, what other kids are getting. And, I mean, this freshman defensive end at Ohio State, I don't know if you saw this truck deal that he got.
No, I didn't see that yet.
So Jack Sawyer was like one of the top players in the entire country, happens to be from Ohio. So he probably would have gone to Ohio State anyway. I mean, let's be honest. But he signed a deal with a car dealership in Columbus that's oddly owned by Mark Wahlberg. I didn't know he has like multiple car dealerships in Columbus, Ohio, which whatever.
Too much sense.
Yeah, but this Jack Sawyer kid, he hasn't played it down yet, and he got an $80,000 truck from this car dealership to do 2 social media posts a month. I mean, it's allowed. Like, do it. Like, now is the time where you can do it. They may change some things down the line. They may amend rules, but they're not going to like retroactively punish teams for doing what was allowed at the time. And I feel like Michigan is erring on the side of like, well, it might not be allowed someday. So we're just kind of like, and like they don't need to do that. And I just wonder why they do. And you said it, you touched on it a little bit earlier. I can't remember the exact phrase you used. They care about their standards a lot or something like that. Yeah. But why do you think there is such like we just want to be careful when like you clearly don't need to be right now?
I try to be careful with my words here.
Yeah.
Michigan very much puts themselves on a pedestal when it comes to standards. And what that kid did, even though, I think the rule is Ohio State can't negotiate that deal.
Right.
And I think Michigan, top to bottom, forever has looked at something like that as like, that's what Ohio State does. That's what they do. Like, that's not our standard. Like, that's not what we do. Now, is that illegal to talk to the car dealership and ask him to do that? Yeah, probably. Can you get away with it? Yeah, probably. And Michigan just doesn't want to get anywhere close to that stuff. And, I can't fault them for that exactly. But, if you're competing for top recruits like that, you gotta push the limits on some certain things and talk to your boosters. And I don't know if it's illegal to talk to your booster and say like, hey, what deals can we do? Now that is a Columbus kid, and Columbus is a football town, and that's one of the top recruits. So that makes a little more sense than like giving some California basketball player a truck out of Ann Arbor. But yeah, those are things that Michigan's going to have to. And I think I think they are. Like, they're not just sitting back being like, we're going to be safe and just sit there and twiddle their thumbs.
Mm-hmm.
But they'll play it slow a little bit and be sure that everything they do is up to standard. And I have faith that they'll figure some stuff out. But, I've talked to a T-shirt company, like a big one. I think it was Home Field Apparel. And they're a huge college licensing T-shirt company now and apparel company. And, they were talking to me about Michigan being slow-footed on working with them and giving up licensing deals for the Block M and stuff like that. They eventually did it because Home Field's a high-end company now, but they're not rushing to throw the Block M everywhere. And I hate to say that it is overconfidence a little bit that we're Michigan, like, we should just get top guys no matter what. But like, that's just not how it is. And it's not been that way. You see it with the football program recruits, and basketball's done it a different way, and they've been successful. And I think they'll be fine because of coaching. It's a little different for basketball than for football, but it's not that way anymore. We can't just say that we're Michigan, we're great, and that's it. Like, you gotta play ball, and hopefully that is slowly being realized. But it is. I don't know. It was frustrating. Even at my time at Michigan, like, first year we were pretty good, not great. Second year we sucked. We were never super good, but like, you're told all the time at Michigan as an athlete, like, this is the best university in the world, and because you go here, you're great. And I'm like, what do you mean? This doesn't allow for any introspection, or at least not enough introspection. Like, we're not that great in a lot of ways. Like, there's always something to be fixed and always something to improve upon. So there's definitely, but that's rampant in college sports in general. Like, fans are like, you can be a fan of, I don't know, some D2 school and you think it's the greatest school in the world. Like, that's just a rampant attitude in college sports in general. And even alumni, not in sports. So it's something that always bothered me. And I hope that that changes a little bit.
I think you hit it on the head. You use the word boosters. Yeah, the network, the alumni, the boosters. And you're right. I mean, if you could have been a fly on the wall for every discussion that happened for that kid to get that truck, maybe some rules were bent or broken. I mean, we don't know. But as long as Ohio State is not like officially setting up that deal, like if it's a booster, goes to the dealership, grabs the kit here, like that's all on the up and up. It's all fine now as long as the school's not initiating those conversations or actually setting the deals up for the student athletes. So I think you hit it right on the head. And it's what I've been talking about since July 1st. It's going to take a group of aggressive boosters and alums to set something up and get some things going for Michigan to really capitalize on this. But again, if Michigan's making it difficult for those people to do that, or creating red tape, or making it a compliance thing, then that's where the problem is. I think Miami football was one of the first ones that did kind of like this broad. I don't even think the guy was an alum. I think he's just a fan. He owns like 40 some odd gyms in Florida and around the world. He set up $540,000 so that every single player on Miami's roster gets $6,000 just for being on the team and like wearing a shirt that says, "This is my favorite gym in Miami." And that's it. I mean, like, so, Michigan has people who could do that on a level than that even. And yeah, it's just been a little, I mean, slow-footed or apprehensive or whatever term you want to use. Michigan is, I don't know. I feel like they're falling behind. And it's happening quickly. But I think what you said you have faith, and you should, because Michigan could still kill this thing if they want. If they get it right, and they do it right, and the boosters get on board, and it comes together, Michigan still has all the resources in the world to be one of the best with NIL, but right now it just feels like they're not. And I think when you've got a guy like Hunter Dickinson saying the things he said, like, there's no more opinion. Like, I caught some heat from it about it when I first started kind of criticizing, like, listen, I've been talking to this person, I've talked to this person, some athletes, some people, like, in Michigan's they're not killing it. and people were like, oh, they will. Like the money cannon's getting ready to be fired. All the right people are lined up. But now we're a month and a half in, and Hunter's saying what he's saying. I don't really think you can argue it at this point. I mean, that's where I am.
Yeah, and the name of the game is summertime. Like you're recruiting in the summer and figuring all that stuff out. And then like when the season hits, like that stuff slows down. And if you're not prepared from day one when this stuff hits, like you saw it coming. Like everyone saw it coming.
Yep.
And so I guess that's one of my biggest issues is like the preparedness of all of it. And again, like, can we get a booster to pay $6,000 to every football player? I don't know. I'm not going to expect that. But the thing is now this is all speculation. I will say this, but like if you're stopping that from happening, that's one thing. But like I can understand where I don't know. Maybe some people can't understand not going out and trying to figure out some boosters to do stuff like that. And I don't know where the red line is with that stuff. I know that I think I read like again, like we said, you just can't do a joint deal together and like have your names on it. But where does that stop you from talking to boosters? I don't think it ever has. You've talked to boosters forever about giving money to your school.
Yep.
So what's the difference about giving money to your school in the form of giving athletes deals? So
a gentleman's conversation over some scotch. I mean, come on, let's call a spade a spade. That's been going on in college sports forever. Yeah, and Michigan's got just some of the greatest alum in the world, some of the richest alum around. There are definitely people that can do that, and alum that very passionate alum. So it is possible. I'm curious. I don't know anything. I haven't heard anything about guys trying to make deals, and I never really ingrained myself with any alum or any rich people like that, unfortunately. But it's going to be interesting to see. And I'm interested to hear like if any stories come out about people trying to talk to the university and doing that stuff or what they want to do, because there's always some guy out there like that gym guy who is willing to just straight up hand cash out. So it'll be. I hope something like that happens. We shall see. All right, you're a basketball guy, but we're going to get you out of here with some football stuff, man. We're just what is it? Less than 3 weeks away from Michigan football kicking off. You mentioned Coach Harbaugh a little bit and how he pushed limits and he changed up his whole staff this past year. He's got a bunch of new guys in there. I'm in it every single day. I don't know how close you follow football or what you know about the ins and outs of the program, the roster, all that stuff. I'm sure you know a decent amount. What do you see this year? It's year 7 for Harbaugh. I mean, like, who's the quarterback? What's the defense look like? Like, what is going on in football, and what do you see? I've been so burned. I like the football team. I loved Denard when he was there, and I liked some of the guys while I played. Then I kind of got off it, but I tried to get back into it when Harbaugh was there. And last couple of years, last year I was like really hopeful for a big year. So to be fully honest with you, I haven't paid too much attention because I paid a little too much attention last year and got burned a little bit as a fan. And, it's going to be funny, though, that like this year is going to be the year that they'll have success. And people are like, there's going to be so many question marks. And for years past, 3 or 4 years, I think it's been like, oh, we're good. We got this. We got this. We got this guy. And I feel like now is like a time when they're going to be really good and just surprise people. I think Harbaugh is a good coach. I don't know what is going on there. I don't know if he's just made bad decisions with players. There's so much pressure. There's so much pressure on him. And I'm curious to see if that's been passed down to some of the players, especially the quarterback play, which has not been the most ideal. And you can tell that those guys feel the pressure and feel the need to just perform on every single play. And that's not what you need. That's not going to breed success. So we'll see. He's on the hot seat. So I'm skeptical, but also hopeful. I'm somewhere in between, but I'm trying to just kind of like distance myself a little bit and just try and hopefully enjoy it and maybe like take the first few weeks and just be neutral and then get into it a little bit after that. But I don't know, man. It is something that they've been dealing with since I was there, the ups and downs. And, 1 week can make or break your season. So it is a pressure that I do not envy. Yeah, that week 2 game against Washington, we've talked about it so many times about how I think that really could swing, the direction of the season. It's like this will be my 8th season. My first year on the Michigan beat, like officially covering the team full time, was Brady Hoke's last year. So I saw that kind of fizzle out. And now we're going into year 7 with Harbaugh, and he's coming in with the, the contract cut in half, and the buyout is like gone. And it's like, I can't believe it's year 7 and this is where we're at. When he was hired, I was like, boom, done. Michigan winning it all. They're going to be the best. And everybody thought that. It was like, it wasn't like a hometown slappy local media thing. It was like, like Paul Feinbaum, guys who like slurp the SEC every day were like, that's an incredible hire. Harbaugh's the man. He's going to do it all. And man, now it's like, hasn't been to Indy, no Big Tens, no wins over Ohio State. I don't know. I've been as critical as anybody about Harbaugh. I don't dislike the guy personally. I loved when he was hired, but I just don't think he's been good enough. It's a win. You got to win at the highest level, and I just don't think he has. And this year, I don't know. I've got him at 7-5. I don't know how close you've gone, like game by game, but do you have any prognosis on what they might do?
No, not yet. And again, I don't even want to predict anything. I kind of want to just take it for what it is. I do want to say one thing. Like we talked about, Dwayne Casey got fired from the Raptors, and he's a great coach, and they go on to win the championship. And then you got guys, I went through Rich Rod and Brady Hoke, and it's like, can we appreciate Harbaugh a little bit instead of
there's some fairness there.
Pastures where, it is not easy to find a good coach all the time. So it's tough to evaluate. You got to be a little inside, get inside, and see like, is he losing recruits? Is he passing down pressure on players? Is this system not working? Like, is he being detrimental to the team's success? Is it a lot of time and place, and Ohio State being just the juggernaut that it is and just absolutely ridiculous? And like, college football is, every year it's about 3 programs are either going to win the national championship. So it is one of the hardest sports to have success in. So it's that pressure in college is just so high. It's just so high in all sports that, we talk about pressure making diamonds, but you can turn around and like just completely demolish a program through pressure and like, having his pay cut and knowing that Harbaugh is such an intense guy. Like, I don't know. It's a tough spot. I don't know what the right answer is. And hindsight is always 20/20, but I don't know. After going through Rich Rod and Brady Hoke, like I can appreciate what Harbaugh does and his commitment to it, and that he has had success before, and that college football is just a very hard thing to have success in. So I don't know. I'm going to try and keep faith and stay positive, but there always comes a point where it's time to move on, especially if you get a commitment from somebody else and you can look elsewhere. And this is the thing with Michigan we talked about earlier, where it's like, can you be humble and say like, I don't think they were humble under like Dave Brandon, like doing like, oh, we're going to hire Rich Rod. Well, we're going to fire Rich Rod and find somebody else and Brady Hoke, and then we're going to move on from there because we're Michigan and we can find the best coach out there. And it's like, sometimes you got to accept your place and where you're at, and let somebody develop there. So I don't know. It's a difficult balance that again, I don't envy that position. Yeah,
no, there's no doubt about it. And I think it's Harbaugh. Again, I've been critical, but I got to be honest, man. Like his presence at Media Day in Indianapolis was like the best I've seen since he was hired, I think. And he talked about it the other day. He's down to his playing weight again. He's like in the best shape he's been in. He looks recharged, man. And I'm hopeful. I don't think I can quite get to optimistic. I'm not there, but I'm hopeful, man. And you want him to do well. And shoot, man, for the livelihood of my business and my website being successful, like it bodes well if Michigan is winning games and doing well. And I have given Harbaugh a lot of credit this offseason. He replaced like almost his whole staff, and he moved people around, and he's got a lot of new things working. He's trying everything. He's trying everything to get it right and to fix what was broken. I'm concerned and a little worried that it's too much newness at one time and a lot of moving parts and trying to figure a lot of it out off of a weird year. We'll see, man. We'll see. All right, last thing. I said we were going to finish with football, and I really appreciate the time, man. I said 30 minutes, and we're going on 45, so I really appreciate it. But we'll get you out of here on this. It's way down the line, but basketball season coming up. Michigan coming off the Big Ten championship. A great tournament run that could have been and should have been better probably had Isaiah Livers not gotten hurt.
Yeah.
And I mean, this number one recruiting class that came in, a ton of talent. Hunter's obviously back, a grad transfer point guard, and Devontae Jones. I mean, I just wonder. It doesn't sound like Michigan's being picked by a lot of the pundits to be the top of the Big Ten. I think Purdue's getting a lot of love. Maryland's in there, Michigan State. But I mean, dude, until someone knocks them off, they got to be the favorite, right? I mean, how could you think otherwise?
No, definitely. And their experience last year with moving parts, and it is not easy to have a 1-year team. In college basketball, the name of the game is building a program and getting guys for 4 years. Beeline did that really well and developed guys. And, last year they had a couple grad transfers and, Franz stepping up and Hunter, the freshman, and you just make it work and figure it out. So I have complete faith that they're going to do that with the freshmen and with Devontae and, just figure it out on the go. And I think, you have that blueprint from last year. Mike Smith, a grad transfer point guard. You got Devontae coming in, transfer point guard. Like, I think they'll just figure it out. I tried to get a feel from Hunter in our conversation about how they were doing it. And I think he just viewed it as business as usual. Like, you're just gonna figure it out and everything will be fine. And again, like with that system, there's no coming in and learning too much. It's coming in and just letting your talent take over. And Devontae is definitely talented. I think him and Hunter are getting a rapport there and getting that relationship built. And that's crucial for those two because, again, the pick and roll game is going to be massive for them. And, yeah, I guess we'll just see how comfortable the freshmen come in and be. And, Hunter said they're going to be 10, 11 deep. I don't know if they'll go that. They'll probably start that out early. And you'll probably tighten the rotation towards the Big Ten season, end of the year. But they got a lot of options and a lot of time to figure it out. I would imagine more of a learning curve compared to last year. They jumped out so hot and were just dominating they looked like the clear number 2 behind Gonzaga, or like clear number 3 behind Gonzaga and Baylor last year. And I think it'll be a little slower this year and kind of be more of a slow peak towards the end of the year, figuring out with all those guys. But, you got Hunter down low and he demands so much attention that I think that will help with the guys to figure it out, because you can be like, hey, we're stuck a little bit. Okay, Hunter, here you go. Or here, Devontae, run the pick and roll. And like those two will just kind of figure it out on the fly, and let the pieces fill in where they may. So it is it's a nice problem to have with having so much talent and so much ability, the ability to play so many players. So yeah, I have complete faith that they'll just figure it out. But I think it'll just be a little slower. So I hope, fans I hope they'll be a little more patient with the guys this first 10 games of the year.
How good's Hunter going to be, dude? Oh man, he's got to be just. I mean, after last year, he just, like you just said, you get stuck. Here you go, get a bucket. Here you go. I mean, like I feel like you could do that almost every time down.
Oh, the confidence he displayed last year as a freshman, like
unreal.
Twofold now, and comfortability with speaking up, voicing his opinion, running the offense. I mean, I remember last year watching him running on the court. He's pointing out left and right, talk about here, Mike, get the ball screen. It's like his 5th game of college basketball. And he's already like directing the transition break. And I'm like, okay, this kid, confidence is about 90% of the game. So
he's got that.
He's going to have that twofold, like I said, this year. And so it'll be really fun to watch. And you'll just be playing off him. Like last year, they didn't do a super great job of playing off him when he got double teamed. They figured it out a little bit more. And so, he'll demand that from the beginning. It won't be a surprise in the 20th game. So I think they'll from day one, they'll be figuring out their system and kind of just going around him. And so it'll be interesting to see if he gets triple teamed this year, which I imagine might happen.
Yeah, probably will. There you have it. Expert analysis from Stu Douglass on, I mean, shoot, man, NIL and football and Hunter Dickinson basketball, the whole 9. Real quick, what's your platform thing you got going on? Plug whatever you want to plug. What you had Hunter on the other day, and just kind of what's going on with you over the next couple months.
Yeah, I got a Michigan hoop centric podcast. That's Go Blue with Stu. It's on the Field of 68 network. We had Hunter on, trying to get some more guys. It's been really fun this past year. We didn't know how it was going to be. We started it last season. It was really fun to talk to guys, former players, and hopefully we can get some more current players and coaches on and talk about the year. And yeah, it's a great time to have a Michigan podcast, Michigan Hoops podcast. Let's just put it that way. So I'm interested to see where it goes, and it's going to be fun to follow the year and just talk hoops all the time.
No doubt about it. Well, I don't. if I have you on to talk hoops, I'm kind of stepping on your toes and coming into your space, but we'll see if we can get you back on. Stu, this was awesome, man. I really appreciate the time. Really good insight on stuff that happened in the past and what's going on now and all the NIL stuff from a former hooper yourself. So really appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no problem. I really appreciate you having me on.
All right. Take care, buddy. All right. Going to wrap up quickly. Normally, Chris and I will, wrap up what we talked about, cover a couple new topics. Chris is out of pocket today, so we will hopefully be back on Wednesday where we can talk things that we've heard about Michigan in fall camp. Obviously, that's getting closer and closer. I mean, we say it every single time. We say it every single time that we're just excited about the football season getting closer, and basketball season is already like in the forefront of people's minds. I mean, you hear Stu talking about it right there, and I like that. I like that insight. It's not something I really thought about in depth yet as we get ready for football season, but thinking that Michigan might come out of the gate a little slower than last year, but should certainly be ready to rock before the Big Ten season hits and competing for another Big Ten championship. So really excited about basketball season, but man, football season less than 3 weeks away. Michigan kicks off against Western Michigan on September 4th. We're going to continue talking about that until that day gets here. So looking forward to get back on the pod with Chris on Wednesday, and we will be back and keep it moving as fall camp marches on. Thanks for listening, everybody.